Kia ora. In this video we're going to have a look at using NZGrapher to produce a simulation of a probability event or series of events. So under data there is an option called probability simulation. If you click on this, it brings up the probability simulation area. If you want to come out of this, you just hit the big cross and won't make any changes. In this video we're going to look at a couple of examples. The first one we're going to have a look at is rolling 2 dice. So my first event here is going to be dice 1, and I can have a probability, the different outcomes I can have are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I can put in the probability of each one being 1 out of 6. Now I can put in these probabilities as fractions or as decimals. If I make a mistake and say I put in 1 out of 8 instead of 1 out of 6 and I try and create it, it'll tell me that my probabilities don't add up to 1. So it's got some checking in there to make sure that you don't accidentally make a mistake. So that's my first dice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. So I've now got 2 dice, and then I'm going to collect some extra data around there. So I want to know how many 6s I'm getting, and I also want to know the sum of the 2 dice. Now by default it does 30 trials, but if we're running a simulation, it makes sense to do a lot more than 30 trials. So I'm going to come along and I'm going to do 500 trials. Once you've got the settings how you'd like it, we're going to hit Create Dataset. What this does is I can see now I've got 500 trials here. I've got my trial number, the result from my first dice, my second dice, the count of the 6s, and the sum of the 2 dice. So I could come and have a look at this as a bar graph, for example, looking at the sum of the dice. We'll just click this Allow More Categories, and I can see here that getting 2s and 12s are less likely and getting 7s is more likely. I may want to show that as a relative frequency so I can see the proportions in each of these categories. I could also then come in and have a look at this as a running proportion where I'm looking at the, let's say success is a 7. This here shows me the probability of getting a 7 on the sum of those 2 dice. If I come back into my probability simulation again, I might want to do something slightly different. So I'm going to reset this. In this one I'm going to have a look at the probability of getting male or female cats in a litter of 5 kittens. So this here will be kitten 1, and I could have a male or a female, and I'm going to assume the probability of each one is going to be 0.5. So I'm going to duplicate that a few times. So I've got 5 kittens now, so kitten 1, kitten 2, kitten 3, kitten 4, and kitten 5. Now this time I don't want to count the 6s, I want to count the number of male kittens, and I also would like to count the number of female kittens. The wording in here just needs to perfectly match the wording up there. And I'm going to do my 500 trials again. So if I press Create Dataset, I can see, if I scroll up to the top here, I've got my trial number, the sex of kitten 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the number of males, and the number of females. So now what I can do is I could come in and have a look at a bar graph of the data where I'm looking at the count of males. So I can see 2 and 3 males seems to be about equally likely, 1 and 4 seems equally likely, as does 0 and 5. You don't have to have all of the events the same. So if I came in here to my probability simulation and I reset it, I could do a dice, and the results of them could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then I can add an event which is potentially a coin toss, and that would be a head or a tail with an outcome of 0.5. And in this case, NZGrapher doesn't do a very good job of working out which ones are your successes, but it will produce that data set there for you, and then you could manually go and work out which ones are your successes and your failures. The other way you could do it is if I was curious about what's the probability of getting a 1 and then getting a head, is I could label this as success and this as success, and then I could come along and I could count my successes, in which case I could look at a bar graph of my count of successes, and I can see that most of the time I am getting 1 success, which wouldn't be an overall success because I'm looking for a 1 on the dice and a head on the coin. So I'll be looking for 2, and I can see that after 500 trials, I've ended up with 39 of them, or 0.078 of them being a success. And that is using the probability simulation mode on NZGrapher.